Okay. I think actually most is here, so let's start. Welcome to this seminar called Did I Just Lose My Job? The Line Manager Role in an Agile Organization. I'm Marcus Tegeman, and this talk was developed together with my colleague Vadim Feldman as well. And this is also part of a new kind of way of working with organizations that we've gathered together from different sources and different ways of looking at how it can actually work. Yes, so who am I? I jokingly call myself an organizational grease monkey because that's how it feels sometimes. That's what I'm doing, because I go into organizations, help managers, help departments to kind of work better together, and also find kind of where does it squeak in the machinery, and kind of how do you actually make it run more smooth. And with that, it's usually about conflicts, or it might be misalignments, because a lot of the time you can see that different departments has different goals and they actually clash with one another. So you can't fulfill both at the same time. So that's why I think about this kind of, okay, how can we make this work? How can we actually line them along the way? I also wrote a book last year called Solve Problems Together, which is about how do you actually get groups to collaborate when you bring them into a meeting room or for a workshop or for a course. And I'm extra excited about this because last night I sent in the second edition to my publisher, which I'm very happy about. So soon it will be updated with even more content, so I'm very happy about that. So that's a bit about me. But what we're going to talk about here is kind of what is the manager's job? Because what's happening in an agile organization is that we try to form kind of self-organizing teams that take on a lot of the work. They decide what to do, when to do it. We assign product owners to decide what is most important, what is least important. We have some scrum masters or agile coaches helping out, kind of facilitating all that work. So what is left for the managers? And I've seen a few different things along the way what has happened in some organizations. And we can discuss on the way if it's good or bad, but these are the kind of some patterns I've seen. One thing I've seen is that many managers, they end up being firefighters. They kind of go in where the trouble is, where it's panicked, where things kind of are not properly working, or some customer gets angry, or teams get a conflict, and they jump in and they save the day. And it's very, very good that you have a person kind of available to do that. The challenge comes if you do it too much. If the manager is always there, kind of trying to fix things, resolving things along the way, so kind of the time kind of just slips away and the focus might be lost for some other things. Other things that might happen is around the coordinator role. The manager is the one that knows everyone, knows what is happening on a more organizational or a departmental or unit level, and it's the one that goes around and talks to everyone, make sure they know what is happening, and usually end up being the one making bigger decisions. And this might also be a good thing to do. The challenge comes if this coordinator becomes the bottleneck in the department. I worked in one organization where one manager needed to be in every meeting because she was the one that took all the decisions or made all the decisions for the team. The challenge was then that she was booked in so many meetings that if you needed something new from her part of the organization, you have to wait 2 or 3 weeks before you can actually get a meeting. And if you called anyone else, then you didn't get a decision because no, it's up to her to make that decision. And then we're kind of stuck again and we're not very agile. Another thing I've seen is that the manager goes in as the missing piece. They realize that, okay, we're actually lacking this competence. I have time over, so let's do that. I saw one manager in an IT organization, he became the release manager because they realized afterwards they lacked a release manager, so he walked in and became the release manager for the department as well, as long as being a line manager. And he resolved the issue kind of in a short-term manner, but long-term his days were filled with kind of coordinating releases and everything else, and kind of missed the part of line managing. Supporter or support role is another thing I've seen. Then it's when you kind of realize I have a lot of time, let's focus on the people. So they are there for the people, they're always available, they sit at their desk. If someone has a problem, they can come, they talk to them, they coach their employees. They create a good kind of atmosphere in their department. People feel heard. They also kind of pick up along on the kind of what happens within their department. And usually they are kind of, when you're walking into the support role, you kind of avoid the firefighting a bit because you pick up on things a bit earlier. But you might still also get stuck here just kind of listening and just reacting to whatever is happening and not kind of getting in the time to think, what is the next step? The last thing I've seen is that some people disappear from their department because they feel, okay, they seem to be managing themselves, they produce things, I'm not needed, so they go out on some sort of ambassador role. They meet a lot of other departments, they meet a lot of units, they go to a lot of meetings outside the department instead of being inside, and working kind of a lot on the political game if you have that in your organization. And this is something also that is needed. So you need to make sure that you have a good connection with other departments and units, but you might also get stuck kind of not having any idea what's actually happening in your department or leading it. So these are kind of 5 things that actually needs to get done. The question is if we're doing it too much. Especially if you're just stuck in firefighting, then nothing else happening, you're just resolving everything along the way, or coordinating, or if you're taking up another role in the department, or just focusing on making the people better, or making sure that the political game in your organization works. If you spend all your time on this, then you're not focusing on the most important task of a manager, and that's what we're going to talk about now. And that is building the long-term capability of your organization. The challenge here is that if you spend so much, because all of these issues are basically resolving kind of what's happening today, issues that happen here. This is about taking the longer look. How can we actually make sure that the department works in a year and are actually relevant for our organization, or our organization is relevant for the market along the way? So how can we make sure that we're relevant in 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years? And also build an organization that can adapt to the changes that are happening for the rest of the organization. And this is also connected to one question I like to ask to managers or management teams I work. On a scale from 0 to 10, how much do your organization and processes help you create value? One management team I talked to, one manager, he actually flinched back, kind of just like this. He got a panicked look in his eyes and said, "It's not very high." That was the kind of level I got from that management team. But it's also kind of interesting when you see here that we build our organization, we build our processes to actually help us work better together, collaborate, actually produce something. But when we ask these questions to people working in organizations, even managers, they rate somewhere, most of them rate around here. Some people feel that they actually kind of stop them from doing any work if they follow all the processes and organizational structure. Some organizations feel that they're somewhere in the middle. They feel they're not getting actually stopped or hindered, but they also feel I don't get that much help from my organization actually getting forward. And there are very few who actually says that our organization is actually helping me create value every day along the. And I think this is something we need to think about when we're talking about the long-term capability of our organization, our department, our unit, or our team. How much does the organization and process actually help us create the value we're supposed to do? The reason I see this kind of very low scores, it might be that the only way we're only called in when actually it doesn't work very well. So I might miss all the good examples. The other one is that in many cases, most companies are not aligned between the strategy they have and actually the structure and process and abilities they actually want. So someone set a strategy or a goal for the year that you should achieve. This is what we're working towards, this is what we should be doing. And they either keep the organization they had or someone else make the decision, this is the way we're supposed to be structured, these are our processes, and these are the kind of competencies and abilities we should have within our organization. And then you have the people here in the middle having no idea what to do. And they get frustrated, they get annoyed, and it gets very hard to do any work. Because they could either follow these, the structure or the processes, or they could achieve this. And So what should we be doing? Because if they don't achieve this, someone will get angry. And if they don't follow the structure or the processes, someone else will get angry. A good example of this was, this was actually on a team level. They got a KPI that said that they needed to, it was a maintenance team, they were supposed to keep the number of bugs for a software below a certain amount. So they had kind of 10 bugs maximum for the software at any time. That was the maximum, critical bugs I should add. So that was the KPI. So they got a clear goal, what they should achieve. The interesting thing was that they also kind of worked in a kind of a Kanban process where they had a product owner from business who were prioritizing their work. And he had a completely other thing to do, and he wanted new features for the software as well. So he was prioritizing what they were supposed to be doing, which was new features. They were also told at the same time that they should fix bugs to be below a certain level. And then they got stuck here having no idea what to do, because no matter what they did, people got angry with them or annoyed, and they were very, very frustrated. So then we had this kind of challenge, and this can also be scaled up on other levels if you see on an organization. So what we're suggesting and what we should be talking about and what we need the time for when we work as a manager is to think about what is our strategy? What is the goal we want to achieve, and how do we actually want to achieve it? And based on this, we can start thinking about, okay, how do we actually want people to behave? What are good behaviors? What are bad behaviors? How should we actually collaborate? What should we learn? What should we be creative about? What should we respond to in our organization? And based on this, we can start creating the structures and processes. Because if we do this and we have this alignment, then we get the reverse effect. That if people follow this, we get the behavior and the strategy we want in the end. Oh, and this is very easy to say and a bit harder to do, to summarize it easily. But there are some simple models that we can think about and look at this. And this also comes into this agile sense, because we can't just do this kind of set this strategy, then we know the behavior, then we set the correct structure and processes directly, because it doesn't work that way. We need to do this in an iterative fashion, and we're going to talk a bit about that as well. But the first thing is, what is a strategy? Because many combine strategy and goals, and they mix up what is a market strategy and organizational strategy and talk about this in different ways. One model that we like, we call it 3 Strategies to Win, but it's based on an article from actually '93 in Harvard Business Review by Tracy and Viersema. But they talk about there are 3 strategies that an organization can actually win in their market. One is operational excellence, and this is one of the most common ones, which means basically we sell our products or our services to a very cheap price, but we sell it to many. So it means that if we get a low margin and we sell it to many, then we get a profit. So it's one way to win, by basically undercutting all our competitors. Another way to win is product leadership. If we make a premium product, if we make the best product and it's differentiated to our competitors, then we can charge a higher price for it. We don't need to sell as many, but we can make a profit in the end. When we talk about product leadership, it's also important to think about, it's not about having the best product, but it's about being the only one that does what you do. So this is about product differentiation, that you have the features or thing that you're doing that no one else can do or are doing at the moment. So it's a lot about focus on kind of this innovation thing. I think, how can we actually make sure that we do something that our competitors don't do? The last strategy, which actually is the least common, is customer centricity. And then you focus on a customer segment or a certain type of customers, and then you deliver what they want. And what you're aiming for here is to make sure that you keep your customers for as long time as possible. We're talking here about customer lifetime value. Even if we don't make a profit the first time we have you as a customer, but the second, the third, and the fourth time, then we start making profit from you. So this is about how do we keep our customers as long as possible. And it's also about, we talk about here about share of wallet as well. This is also about focusing. This is not about having a certain product or service that you're delivering. This is about thinking about, okay, what do you need? And when we get to know you, you trust us and think, okay, do you need anything else? Okay, we can deliver that as well. So we try to kind of make sure that you come to us for all your problems. So we try to expand that as much as possible. So these are kind of 3 main strategies. And usually when I talk about this, everyone says we need all of them. So, and yes, it would be nice, but it costs too much to have all of them. Just to give you some examples as well here. If you take car brands, operational excellence, we have Toyota. Not so strange. They were the ones that started the whole lean business along the way. How do we actually make this as cost effective as possible? Make sure we have a good quality. And also, when we talk about quality here, the quality is basically this good enough so we don't have to redo something. We don't want an error because it costs us more because we need to kind of remake a car along the way. So the focus here on quality is just to make sure that we reach above the baseline we have. We have Tesla, product leadership. It's state-of-the-art technology. When they came in, they were basically the only ones doing those electrical sports cars. And Audi is actually one example of customer centricity in the sense that in 2016, they were the car manufacturer with most distinctive different car models. And each car model was very specified to one type of person. So they basically, if you look at the Audi different kind of car brand or cars they have, they basically are fitted to exactly one type of person and they sell it to that, but then they have built it around. But what they don't do here, they have not just focused on one niche. They basically sell to everyone, but they are very specific in what they sell to each type of customer, and they make sure that it fits them perfectly. A better example, if we leave the kind of car industry, is the Ritz-Carlton hotels, focusing on customer centricity. They have this kind of famous kind of mantra or slogan, so we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. So it's this focus on just kind of making sure that they serve their customer in a very good way. And each person at Ritz-Carlton, if some of their customers come up to them and ask them something, each they have $2,000, they can do whatever they want to for that customer on that occasion. So basically, if someone comes to have a problem, then they know that I can spend $2,000 on that person without any problems asking for anything. So they can respond extremely quickly to whatever happens there. And also in some cases, they've even kind of refurnished or actually rebuilt their hotel rooms based on a client's kind of wishes. So one wanted a bathtub instead of a shower in the room they had. So before they came, they put in a bathtub. So this is the customer centricity approach. And when we talk about this, you know, the customer is always right. So here, the customer is actually always right. There is no alternative to it. But if you talk about product leadership, okay, but this is our product. If you don't like it, then buy something else. But we have a really good product, but if it doesn't fit you, it's up to you. And if we talk here, then they're building stuff, and if you can manage, okay, it doesn't fit me perfectly, but it's fine. I will buy it anyway. So we recently bought a new sofa at IKEA. So we're very happy with it, except the color of the, what's it called? Klädsel. Yeah. The color of the sofa or the fabric of it. But then we looked at it and we looked at other prices and we thought, okay, we have a 3-year-old, let's buy the IKEA sofa. It will be fine for now. It's not exactly the color we want, but it's good enough for now. So we know that the 3-year-old will probably destroy it within a few years. So this is the kind of different ways of thinking. Another way of talking about this is what is holy. For customer centricity, it's the customer. The customer is always right. If we talk product leadership, the product is the most holy thing we have. We are creating a good product, and nothing else will stand in our way from creating that product. And if we talk about operational excellence, what is most holy is the processes we actually work in. Let's follow the processes. These are our standards. This is the way we're working, because if we follow them, hopefully we will get the result we want. And in most cases, when you are cutting there, it is the most important thing to follow to fulfill this strategy. The challenge many companies come to is either that they are in one type of organization and trying to be something else, or in many other cases, they are doing their strategy too much, because we need a bit of the other types as well for this to work. So if you are too extremely operational excellence, you're extremely lean, everything you do is kind of put down into standard operating procedures, processes, every single minute of your day is accounted for, you will produce what you have right now extremely well. You will do that well for now, but the problem is your organization gets very rigid, it gets stiff, nothing happens, and you lose the innovation for new products that happens in product leadership. And also it will be very troublesome to actually fulfill if customers have problems, then you need to kind of push them into the process you have and it might not fit. Or a customer almost fits how you work but doesn't, then it gets very hard to actually work with this. So we need to move back again. And this is a dance that we don't really know. This is a dance that never ends. So basically we start moving and we realize, okay, we need to lighten up our processes. We need to kind of make sure we kind of have some more innovation in our organization, a bit more focus on our customers. So we move in, then we realize, but our main strategy is actually operational excellence. And now we're becoming too expensive. So we need to move back a bit. And when we're talking about the long-term capability, it's about this movement, thinking about where are we now and how do we actually adapt our strategy and then our organization to fit that along the way. What are we supposed to be doing? And the same goes for product leadership. You might be creating the best product in the world, but if it's too expensive and you can't vary it in any way to any customer, then you need to move back a bit. And here we can see an example from Apple, because if you remember the first iPhones that were released, the first types, they were very cool, they were very new, but usually they had some trouble actually delivering them. There were long waiting times. You had to wait many, many months before you can get the latest version because they had trouble actually producing them. And then when Tim Cook took over, he's from logistics, so he started actually focusing on operational excellence and pulling Apple a bit more towards actually making sure that they actually could deliver the phones they actually wanted to sell when they started selling. But that has also made you can also see that they have made smaller leaps in their innovation along the way, but when they start selling, you actually can get an iPhone. Another interesting thing is that they're actually moving a bit towards customer centricity now as well, Apple, with kind of the share of wallet thinking. With Apple Pay, Apple Music, the Home, all of this is kind of making sure that you put all your money with them, or more of your money along the way. And the same goes for customer centricity. That if you are too specific and only do one thing for a customer, it gets too expensive. I heard a story that Bentley recently, they built one car for one customer. So basically, he got his own design team and got to design his own car with them, and then they built that car for him. So it's very, very, very customer-centric, but it's not sustainable to do that for everyone else. So the question here is, how can we build a platform here that we can serve as many of our customers as possible in a cheaper way? But the point is, you can't move too far into the middle. Because if you end up here in the center, you don't have a strategy. So if you're here, you're kind of premium along the way. You have some variation and you're medium price. But that means that you will have a competitor that is cheaper than you. You will have a competitor with things that you don't have along the way. And you will have a competitor that is even more focused on the customer segments that you have. So it means that you have basically nothing. And that is where many organizations also end up. They're sort of kind of everything, so kind of in the middle, lagom. That kind of focus. So then it's a question, where should you move? And actually, as for some clients, we actually talked about this. Okay, where would you put your competitors in? So actually start thinking about, okay, some of our competitors are here, some are here. Okay, a good play for us might be to move a bit more towards product leadership. So it's a way of thinking about where to move. So the question is, where are you and where do you want to go? And the most important thing is not to kind of figuring out, okay, we're exactly here at this point. The more important thing is actually to figure out where do you want to go, what do you want to increase along the way. So if you want to move a bit up here towards product leadership, then the thinking about, okay, how can we increase creativity? How can we reduce the time it takes for new ideas to actually reach the market along the way? But we should not leave this completely. We can't just leave everything we have behind. And you will never be able to move up here. If you have your current organization with a lot of people, you have a lot of culture, a lot of values, and the people here worked in a different way, and assume you can just push them up to be the best product leadership kind of company or organization in the world. It won't happen. To do that, you need to create a new organization. And that we have seen in some organizations we've worked with. When you want the product leadership part, especially in operational excellence, you create some sort of skunk works outside of the system, basically. So you create a department, preferably putting them a bit outside of where everyone else is sitting. You make sure they don't need to follow the processes. You give them a budget, you give them a clear goal and vision, and then you let them work and solve it out themselves. And then that is actually a way of actually increasing product leadership for your entire company by just putting it outside of the other organization. And that's also another kind of complexity, because we need a mix of these. And some departments or units will be more kind of operational in your excellence in your organization. Some will be more product leadership, and some customer centric. And the question is then, how do you actually make sure that they can collaborate in a good way? Because they will have different strategies and goals and way of working. And these kind of interfaces, there will be conflict in them, and you need to make sure that it actually works. And also, so that if you start creating your kind of these product leadership, that they don't get sucked back into the rest of the organization, and suddenly it's filled with processes and strict ways of doing innovation and new work. And that will be a problem to get that working. So this is kind of overall thinking, and thinking about, so where are we? And so you can both look at this on your whole organization, thinking about, okay, what is our organization, and what is the expectation on your department or unit where you're working in? So what are you supposed to be doing? Because some have an operational excellence requirement on them, because they need to be as cheap as possible, and then that is the strategy you should follow. Or product leadership, but that means there will be conflict with the rest of the organization that needs to be resolved. And there's also another thinking. If you're a manager for a department, it could mean, okay, at the moment we are here, but so you might also think a bit egoistically, okay, what would be fun to do with this department? What do I think would help the rest of the organization? How should I move to make this even better fit and actually produce more value? And that means also this kind of long-term strategy and thinking what would be needed for the next step. We try to focus on 5 organizational capabilities when we do these moves. This is a bit connected to kind of balanced scorecards and other kind of methods, but what we realized is that one of the things that that you need to focus on is growth. So what is actually needed for this department to do if you get twice the amount of customers, or you're required to launch another product, or you get kind of new thing, or you need to increase the volume of what you're producing? How can you actually grow as a department to make sure that you have that scalability? But it's also about scaling down again, because you might realize, okay, we lost half our customers. And that means you can't take 1 year to actually remove that, because then you're bleeding a lot. So thinking about how can my organization be ready to scale up and down, and how should I actually form it? One example I have for this growth is an organization we worked with a bit, was that they were very focused on product leadership and delivering certain products. And the challenge here was that they got new and new products all the time, and then they need to scale up with another team and another team and another team all the time. And it was a very tough, it was kind of nice because the organization needed to scale up, but the problem was it's very hard to scale up when you're kind of focusing on new products all the time. The interesting thing was that they had very clear customer segments. They had 3 extremely clear customer segments they were working towards. And what we were trying to do was actually change, so instead of being focusing on delivering different products, delivering to these 3 different customer segments, because then you would ease the scalability of it. So instead of a team being focused on delivering a certain product, they were focusing on delivering to a customer. And then it's much easier to scale, because even when they got a new product, they were still delivering to the same type of customer that they've always been working on. So that was the kind of way we're trying to shift that department. It's much easier to say it than actually do it, I'll tell you. So. The other thing is about learning. How do we actually learn and develop as people? So what should we focus on when learning, and actually the people in the organization, how do they actually develop in their work roles? And that actually differs between operational excellence, product leadership, and customer centricity. The next one, creativity. What should we be creative about? What should we focus our creativity on? So take the example of operational excellence. The creativity should be focused on continuous improvement, like we do it's lean basically. So focusing on, okay, how can we make what we're doing more efficient, more cost effective, and actually how can we produce more and increase our quality? But if we're talking about creativity when it's about product leadership, creativity is all about generating new ideas and actually making sure that we actually see how can we actually make sure our product gets more differentiated from our other customers. And creativity when we're focusing on customer centricity is about, okay, what does our customer want? It's about getting to know them, figuring out how we do this, and also narrowing down our segments, realizing, okay, we're just focusing on this segment now, but actually if we focus this, we can be even more specific but still keep our sales along the way. Collaboration, how do we collaborate? What are our goal settings? How do we make sure we actually collaborate in a good way? And the final one here, responsiveness. What should we be responsive to? To just make an example here. So responsiveness is what should you react to the first or be quickest to react on? If you're focusing on operational excellence, it's about cost and quality. So basically, if costs go up or quality happens, then you should react quickly and be able to change that as quickly as possible. And you need to focus your organization on that. If it's product leadership, if a new idea pops up, someone comes with an idea, then you should be able to capture that and deliver it to the market as possible. And you also need to be able to react towards kind of what is happening in the marketplace. What are your competitors doing? And reacting to that as quickly as possible. It will cost more, but you need to be kind of move forward. A question I ask sometimes is, how much would you pay if you come with an idea and we would deliver it tomorrow to you? How much would that be worth to you? And then you're kind of into the product leadership thinking. Okay, we will put enormous amount of cash into it, and we will get it quickly, because that is how we actually win new customers. And then we can probably not deliver tomorrow, but that is another story. And then, so if our customers lose faith in us or they don't like our product, we need to be able to react on that quickly. And also changes in the customer segments we are working towards. So here is a quick summary of everything I just said, but we're not going to go any more detail into that. So we have a one-day course where we're just talking about this kind of thinking and how we're actually working with this. But the question now is, how do we actually make this happen? Because when we're actually focusing on this and we want to move, maybe increase our product leadership, how can we actually do that? Because it's not just saying, let's go towards product leadership, we need to actually do something about it. And we don't know if we're just changing our organizational structure if it was the right way. So we need to think about, okay, where are we heading? And then the transformation is about finding what is stopping us from becoming more product leadership or more customer-centric or more operational excellence, and removing those one at a time. So basically, when we set our strategy, we try to figure out kind of what behavior are we actually trying to work towards? What is actually stopping us at the moment? One of my colleagues, the biggest challenge they have towards moving towards product leadership is that the company does not generate enough ideas. So that is what they're working on. How do we actually get more ideas into the organization? That is the biggest thing. So then they're doing a lot of changes in their organization, how they're actually working, how do we actually get people to generate more and more ideas? And that is one kind of example how we can work with this. But the point is we need to figure out what is the most important thing, and then we work. We do a change, and we evaluate, did it work? No, it didn't. Okay, let's skip that. We try something else. We're moving back again. And this kind of agile way of doing these changes. The problem here is that most management teams, managers and departments, they don't have time for this. We're working with one management team. We set up a similar way of working, and then we found a change. It wasn't that big. We talked again about a week or 2 weeks later, nothing had happened. And then we kind of cut the change down again. So okay, let's try implementing this part. Nothing happened a week later. And we cut it down again. And then we sat down and said, okay, how much time do you have for this? And they realized I had about 30 minutes each per week to do some of these changes. The rest was kind of stuck doing firefighting, coordinating work and other things. So the first thing that actually needs to happen for most organization is to create Slack. So how can we actually change our organization to produce more Slack so we actually get time to actually think? Because that is one of the major challenges. We don't have time to even think about what we should be doing, and even less time to actually do it. So if we don't get the time to actually start thinking how it works, get ideas, and also Slack is also about resource. Do we have the money to actually make a change along the way? So that is actually the first focus. And if you're a manager, you should think about this. How do you create Slack for yourself? What do you spend most time on? Is it firefighting? Is it coordinating work? Are you the missing piece on somewhere? Should you hire someone to actually take over that? Are you spending all your time kind of coaching and supporting the people there? Or are you kind of just being the ambassador for other departments, getting good connections there? So what are you spending too much time on and should reduce so you actually can focus on building long-term capability? So, and that is the first step that actually you as a manager have time to actually do this. The next step is actually to create Slack for the people in your organization. And the first thing you actually can do here is actually help people say no. Because we need to do less in our organization, skip the least prioritized things. And yes, some people will get angry, but if you can remove a few things that you're actually doing that are not that important, then you get some time over to actually change, and then you can actually produce more and make sure you actually produce what should be produced. Look at removing constraints. What is stopping people? Is it processes? What are actually stopping us from actually producing along the way? Processes, structure. Are you supposed to, could you move some people into your organization to make it easy to collaborate with them, or move other people out of it? And also think about this. Are people just busy or are they productive? What should they actually, what is value creating? And what you might notice here is that what I'm talking about here is actually doing an operational excellence play. So actually focusing a bit on operational excellence for a while in your department, but not to be able to produce more, but actually to make sure you do things more effective so you actually get time to think. So the cost should be the same, what you're producing should be the same, but you have that extra time over in your department to actually do other things. That is usually the first step that needs to be taken. But it might also be if you do this too much, then you're just falling into just producing more instead. And we notice that with a lot of departments. If you give them extra time, then they will focus on what they do best, and that is producing even more. So it's a difficult play to do this, but it is possible. And then you can focus on actually making sure you move in the direction you want and getting the strategy you want when you have the slack extra. Another thing that happens when you're working in your organization, if you have your department, your unit, wherever it is, you will get to a lot of problems along the way that you can't resolve within your department. You need to work with the other departments as well. And this is when you're getting to these connections, we talked about it before, but these interfaces between departments, those can be quite hard to resolve, because you might have different strategies, you might have different goals and agendas along the way, and how do we actually create a win-win collaboration here? So what we can see in many cases, a lot of organizations have a lot of departments working here. And then some are expected to kind of be innovative, some are more kind of customer focused, and how do we get this to play in a good fashion? One example we can see here, if you have a sales department that's working towards the customer, they are naturally quite focused over here as a department, kind of, okay, how can we fulfill this? And you know this kind of annoying thing where they say yes to everything the customer asks for. And then they go over to a department that's supposed to be extremely cheap, and they say, okay, you're supposed to deliver this in 1 month. But that won't happen, and then everyone gets angry at everyone. So this is kind of a usual, this interface problem where you actually have different strategies, because their strategy is to actually serve their customer as well as possible, make sure they stay, you make money from them. And your strategy might be over here. Basically, you're not allowed to cost more than this per year. Okay, we'll try. But it will be very hard to kind of resolve this along the way. And also, if you're on the product leadership, you have a very clear, this actually happened to me helping out in a project. That the salespeople come, okay, we're going into this new market. These are the requirements. And the product owner, she sat down and looked at it and said, if we do this, then we go against our product vision, because we need to change a lot of what is happening here. We could do it, but that means we need to create another project. So she said no. Oh, everyone was happy afterwards. Oh, no, they weren't. But it was a very good discussion that actually happened here, because she had a very clear, this is the product we're building, and if we're going to sell to these customers as well, then we're destroying that vision. So suddenly the decision was moved away from them, and the decision was, would keep the product vision or should we change it? And then it was another type of discussion that actually happened, and everyone in the end was actually quite happy with the results. So I've been talking quite fast here along the way. I hope you've been following. But if we're now looking at building this long-term capability, it's about making changes in your organization. And the changes are focused on what abilities do we need, what are our structure and processes. It is about creating the slack first, so you actually can do some changes, but also make sure that you can do these cross-organizational changes along the way, so you actually can improve your collaboration within your entire organization. What behaviors do you need to kind of improve and work on? And also what strategy, where are you and what direction are you heading? So the line manager's role in an agile organization. And to sum this up, to give a bit of PR as well, October 18 next week, I'm giving a course on how to leda kontinuerlig förbättring, lead continuous change. And it actually happens in Växjö, if you want to travel there. 22nd of November, we have a course we call Adaptive Management, and it's actually about this, the triangle, and also these kind of 5 behaviors. We're going to spend 1 day just talking about how you actually can design an organization based on that. And the day after, we have 1 course on creating a collaborative organization, where we'll talk about how you can actually work and improve the organizational interfaces along your entire organization. So that's it, and now I'm happy to take any questions you might have. Oh, thank you.